Hey, I picked up the Texas Two Steps. It came in on Tuesday, I think, of this week, the 27th, and so I started playing around with it, and I've gotten one evaluation done, and looking to start another one. Apologize for the lack of quality of the video, and there are definitely better ways to do this, but this is just quick and dirty. I'll send an email with some more usable copies. The Texas Two Steps first impression, there's lots of good information in there, particularly about the developmental sequence, but also breaking down of about when, in terms of months, certain things should be happening. It's definitely really helpful to somebody like me who doesn't have kids of my own and spends as little time as possible among those who ooze out of both ends uncontrollably. And that was great just to have that as sort of a reference of what happens when, and then what precedes what, and things like that. There are some things that I can see that could be helpful, and I came up with something to try to help out with the overall scoring. The book, the same thing with TAPS. You have a lot of information in it, but it's not easy to have it all at your fingertips, and it's even harder to sit down with a parent. And when you tell the parent, your kid's doing whatever with street crossings or whatnot in the TAPS, to get to the end, and then the parent says to you, well, does that mean he's ready to travel, or how far along is he, or it's hard to call that information, and distill it down into something that's easy for a parent or somebody like that, another related service provider or teacher to hang on to. So came up with this. And I'll email this to you. This is a front page of a Excel workbook, and what I've done is here at the top, there's a little yellow area for student name and date, and, you can change those. The skills, and then there's 0 to 3 months, 4 to 6, 7 to 9, 10 to 12, 13 to 15, 16 to 18, 19 to 24, 25 to 36, 37 to 48, and 49 to 60. And I had to take the skills as they were presented and kind of pigeonhole them into these, and what I did was I took skills at the top range. For example, here we are, 6 to 9 month skill. This is in the head control area. I went in 4-point position, child will lift his head, and I put that in the 7 to 9 months behavior because the 6 to 9, 9 was the highest number, and I put it in with the 9s instead of down with the 6s. Since my assumption was that with it being a behavior we see from 6 to 9 months, by around 9 months we're really wanting to see that behavior. Otherwise, it's a cause for concern. Whereas if we don't see it at 6 months, it's not a big deal because the kid still has 2 months in order to kind of pick that skill up. So anyway, the skills are broken down by month, but then they're also broken down by the individual skills. So reflexive skills, there are some skills in the 0 to 3 month, 4 to 6 months. There were none specifically for 7 to 9 months, and then there were some skills in the 10 to 12 month. So you can look at reflexive skills going across, and it'll give you a total score. Or you could look at all the 0 to 3 month skills coming down through all the skills like reflexive and head control, trunk and arm, leg control, rolling, and so forth. And it'll come down here and it'll kind of total all those up. And then I further divided it between the mobility segment and the orientation segment. So you have the same thing coming down here on the orientation segment. And then down here on this third blue bar, it combines the scores from these two to give you a combined total for both the orientation and the mobility skills of the 0 to 3 months. Over here in the red, it's just totaling up the score for the individual skills, like reflexive, for example, and it'll give you that score. And then it'll take all of the red scores and compile them here in this very last square and give you sort of a total for all of the skills in the mobility area. Get the same thing here in the orientation area, and then it combines them down here in the that bottom bar. Down here it just says Texas Two Steps successful Successfully Teaching Early Purposeful Skills, Texas School for the Blind, Educational Service Center 11, Stephen F. Austin University, and then my own little piece here, Data Compilation Companion. And then it just sort of gives a little bit of information. Yellow is an area where people can change, add information, things like that. Gray, there's just no specific skills to be addressed. Like, for example, in the orientation area, there were no independent living skills from 0 months on up until we're here in the 19 to 24 month area. So the first skills actually start at month 25 down here in independent living. So none of these are scored. As far as the green areas, that's again, kind of showing where things are, which I think kind of helps parents anyway, because you get kind of this downward arc kind of cascading with the 0 to 12 month skills, mainly up here in the top left of the chart, and then down in the bottom right of the chart you have mobility skills that come along later, such as walking, jumping, kicking, running, things like that. That ought to help some parents out. The reds, like I said, that's just totaling up, going across for each skill, and the blue is compiling for each of the individual columns as they come down. And hopefully this will be a little more clear when I kick over to a kiddo, an actual student that we did. I'm calling him Bubba. His name is obviously not Bubba. And so you can kind of see that here. In the 0 to 3 months, and this may be small for the screen, but again I'll email this same document. He got 91.67% of the skills in reflexive, 95.65% in head control, 100% in trunk, arm, leg, rolling, reaching, sitting, 83.3%. And so he wound up with 95.09% for his 0 to 3 month mobility skills. Coming down to orientation, 0 to 3 months, he was 100% sensory, 100% body awareness, 100% object permanence for 100% on the orientation skills 0 to 3 months. And then his total came out at 97.55% for the skills 0 to 3 months. Now, looking across, reflexive, for example, 91.67 in 0 to 3 months, but then 66.67 in 4 to 6 months, and 33.33 in 10 to 12 months. So he scored 63.89 rather on his total score for reflexive. And then as the scores add up, they come down. And mobility skills wise, he was at 70.27%. Orientation-wise, he was at 57.61%. Overall, 63.94%, which would be a handy way of telling a parent, your kid's about 2/3 of the way to where we want him to be if he's a 60-month-old kid. Now, this particular student is multiply impaired. He's got extreme muscle or lack of muscle tone. And so when I talked to the physical therapist, he said, there's a lot of these things he's never going to be able to do, just physically cannot do it. Crawling. He was able to do a few of the things in the earlier stages of crawling, 4 to 6 months and 7 to 9 months, 80% and 100%. But then he was 0 on the 10 to 12 months, 13 to 15, 16 to 18. Now the way I have this work, and you can kind of see it here, well, you'll be able to see it on the email because chances are good it's fiddly now. He's 90% on his score, his total score, but that's just averaging the 80 and the 100%, which averages out to 90%, obviously. These 3 zeros from the 10 to 12, 13 to 15, 16 to 18, they don't count. The formula over here is actually getting rid of the zeros and just averaging the 2 numbers that are there. So the kid isn't being penalized for something he doesn't have the ability to do. Indeed, he has none of the 16 to 18 month or 19 to 24 month in terms of ability to do any of those skills, and so we're not going to punish him for that. And you tell a parent that, well, your kid's never going to get above 40% or something. So the kid's at 70% of what he's capable of doing. So things in grasping, for example, he was 100% on 4 to 6 months, 100% 7 to 9 months, but he was 33% on the 25 to 36 month. So we go over to grasping, which is the 9th little tab down here at the bottom. And the only skill that he hasn't really worked on is child will rotate wrist to turn a doorknob. Now, because this kid's not going to be able to reach up to do a doorknob, we're going to have to bring a doorknob down to him. Now, I do believe he has the ability to turn a doorknob. I think he's got the strength. I know he's got, the dexterity piece, just that low muscle tone. Some doors may be tougher than others. Maybe have to be one that instead of having the knob, it has more of like a little handlebar kind of a thing where, you just kind of tip it down. Whatever, we can play with that. And this number, I think, is something that may be able to go up in time. And since I'm on this page, by the way, this is the data that feeds the front. So that 33.33% comes from right here. I took the exact text, well, as fast as I was typing it in, I may have little typos here and there. The text that you guys provided in the Texas 2 Steps book. Child will use a palm of grasp. Child will grasp and hold on to one object in each hand at the same time. Child will reach and grasp for objects presented in any position within range of his reach. And those were 3 to 6, 5 to 6, and 5 to 6 months. So I put them all in the 4 to 6 month behaviors. Well, he was he did as well as he could have on those. And so scoring wise, come back out here to the front. Give a 3 to anything that would have been a plus. A 2 to anything that would have been emerging, a 1 to anything that's just a skill that he hasn't demonstrated, but you believe that he may be able to demonstrate at some point in time, and then a 0 to something that the kid's just not going to be able to do. There were a couple of skills in here about, a kid will turn his head for a visual stimulation. Well, if the kid doesn't have any vision, he's not going to be able to do that. And so that would be a 0. Whereas auditorily, if you had a kid who, as far as you knew, the kid's hearing was at least there to some degree or another, and you thought that in time, the kid would start turning his head or reaching for an auditory toy or sound or whatever. It might be a 1 now, or it might be an emerging, but it could eventually get to be a 3. It's different than if the kid has no vision and then the visual sign. Anyway, it had to be numbers in order to make this work, just because it's Excel. So 3s are essentially, yes, he's doing the skill, demonstrating that skill, which would be the plus. The 2 again would be the emerging, and then the 1 is where he is with the rotating the doorknob right now is a 1. I think he may have the ability to do it. I could be proved wrong later and maybe change that to a 0. He could increase on this. Now, if I change this 1, if I change it to a 0, right now his total score for grasping is 2.33 on this page back here, which on the front page translates into a percentage of 33.33. On that particular skill. He's got 100% on the other 2 parts of it, and 77.8 as the overall score for grasping. But if this turns into a 0, because we try it and we do everything we can, and we figure, he just doesn't have the strength, turns into a 0. Well, now his total on this back page becomes a 3. We click over to the front. You have a 100, a 100, maybe that'd be better than my little pointer, a 100 and a 100 here on the 4 to 6 and 7 to 9 month areas, and now you have a 0 on the 25 to 36 month. But his score is now 100%, because we're now saying, okay, well, we found out the kid just can't do that skill, and so we're going to 0 it out, and so now the kid's at 100% on it, which raises his overall percentage to 72.49%. So it can kind of adjust as it goes, as the O&M is working with the kid and finding out more about him, as other information comes in from physical therapists, occupational therapists, speech paths, TVIs, classroom teachers, whoever it is. This whole thing, by the way, I sat down with the classroom teacher. I know this kid pretty well, and the classroom teacher knows him extraordinarily well. She's been with him, I believe, for about 3 years. And so we were able to just crank through these questions, and we did this in somewhere between 45 minutes to an hour-ish to get some really good information on this student. Now, granted, this was not a student we had to go out and try things with, simply because we did know the student so well. But as it turns out with this little doorknob deal, there are some things that we still do want to play with over time. So let's see, what else? again, the whole thing is that it kicks over to the front page. This prints out as a single page. Parents can look at it. You can sit there and talk the parents through it. I will be doing another short video when I get another kid done who's walking and moving around and doing more in the way of communication. That student's not particularly verbal, but he is walking and he is moving around. He does have good receptive language. His expressive language is hard to understand, things like that. But you know, there's quite a bit more in the area of jumping, walking, climbing, and so I can kind of see what that looks like with that student. Now with that student though, the question is, do you really spend time working on or reviewing some of these reflexive behaviors? You know, for example, ATNR on a kid who's 4 years old and walking around, I don't know how I'd really assess that. I mean, other than just asking a parent. I mean, I would assume by this point it would have resolved, but again, this isn't my population, so I don't want to make any rash assumptions. So, with this as a score sheet, and I did this, by the way, on an I wrote it all up on the computer. I emailed it to myself on an iPad, which strips off all the protections, which is bad. And then I filled it out on the iPad with the teacher sitting in the classroom, and then I emailed it back to myself, pulled it back up on the computer, and that's how I'm doing this now. But it can transfer back and forth using numbers on iPad and then Excel in the computer. Problem is it strips away the protections. And that does become an issue because if I'm over here on the standard sheet, if I try to type something here, it's going to give me an error saying, no, you can't do this. The only place on this I can type is up there in the yellow. You know, because everything else is write protected, which is important because these are all formulas. Everything back in here is a formula, you know, C6 plus C7 plus, you know, so on and so forth, count if, blah, 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 you know, such and such range. All of this is here, and it's doing its work, and we can't have people screwing with that inadvertently, because you know, then they basically got to dump the thing and start over, and nobody wants to do that. There is a place on each of the skills to type up notes. I mean, I can't see really using very much of it, but it is there if anybody decides to do that. So mechanically how it works, this does not show up on the iPad, but it does show up on the regular computer, PC. Right by reflexive, there's a number 4 because it's the 4th row down. Well, that row corresponds to the number down here, 4. So you click on it, there's reflexive. Coming back to the front page, if I want to go to basic skills, the number by basic skills is 19. I just come down here to the bottom and I find 19, and then I click on it and I'm there at basic skills. You could just, you know, kind of crank your way through it. There's cane skills, there's sensory. Cane skills, by the way, is 20 and sensory is 24. The reason for that is cane skills is over here at 20, and then 21 was a mobility total, 22 is a blank line, 23 just says orientation, 24 is where orientation starts up. So overall, it's easy to navigate. It does all the compilations for you. All you have to do is enter in 0, 1, 2, 3 on every one of the skills, and it'll give you a score. You know, and you know, if there are some things, you know, cane skills, for example, if you have a kid who just is never going to need a cane, well, you could zero out all those scores and just leave it as a 0, and it doesn't hurt the overall score. So a kid could still have 100% down here in this little red box if everything up here was either a 0 or 100%. You know, depending on you know, how they did with all the individual skills that are behind this page. And all of these back here, they're just feeding that data to the front page. That's pretty much all these are. And you know, again, all I did was I just took body awareness, and I took everything that you guys had already put down, body awareness, all the way down. The months that you guys put down, 1 to 3, 3 to 5, 3 to 6, 4 to 6, 4 to 6, 5 to 6, those are all exactly as I found them. Now, again, I did put little ranges, 0 to 3, 4 to 6. The first year and a half is every 3 months, and then it goes to 19 to 24. So you know, it goes basically a year and a half to 2 years. and then it goes 25 to 36, so from 2 to 3, and then there's a 37 to 48, 3 to 4, and then a 49 to 60. There are a couple skills that go up to 66 months, but I just kind of put them in the 60-month thing, and I didn't really mess around with that too much. And again, the only reason I pigeonholed it like that, instead of putting it more like the way you guys had it, was so that on this front page we could break things down in a pretty understandable format. You know, the first 18 months of life being where there's so much change, so many developments, things like that, that you know, you'd have little 3-month columns for the first 6, and then the 6-month column, because there's still a lot of change, 1924, and then 1-year columns. And the 1-year columns basically tracked with kind of what you guys had down as far as the months go. You know, maybe 17 would be a better one. Yeah, kicking, because 16 to 24, 24 to 36, 36 to 48. I mean, you know, you're basically the 1.5 to 2, 2 to 3, and 3 to 4, which, you know, tracks very well with what I did. So I tried to make it kind of land within your guys' parameters. Anyway, I'm thinking this is something that could be a companion to what you guys have created, and you know, I'm more than happy to you know, let you guys have it, to kind of send along with the packet, or make available, or you know, if that's something you guys want to do. I mean, I understand if you guys would rather not do that, just, you know, for your own reasons. I mean, after all, you guys did do a lot of work developing it, and you know, if a program like this is just easy to transfer an email and things like that. Sorry. The transferring and emailing is actually one of an attribute as far as I see it, but that's because I'm coming at it from the standpoint of somebody who did the inventory, and a big part of the inventory was just based on the ability to transfer information very quickly from one O&M to another. But that may not quite be what you guys are hoping for, since you guys have a book. And once somebody has something on the computer, well, are they really going to use the book? I mean, there's nothing in here that talks about you know, how to teach any of these skills. I mean, there's nothing back here like in the book. You know, when a prone position resting on forearms, child will reach out with one arm to obtain a desired object. In your guys' book, you guys talk about some ways to get that, or how to assess that. This doesn't do that. I mean, so to my mind, you'd need the book anyway. But as an O&M, you'd probably have one book, and then, you know, use a computer tracking sheet, essentially, versus having a bunch of books that then just kind of gather dust on the shelf. But again, I can certainly see it the other way as well. I mean, you guys worked hard, and if you guys need to sell some books, then this would be something that might prohibit, or not prohibit, but inhibit that. You know, so it's up to you guys. Let me know what you guys want to do. And if it's something that you guys are interested, I'm more than happy to, you know, to let you guys have this. In fact, I mean, since I'm emailing you copies, it's real easy for you guys just to make copies on your computer, as far as you know, this little electronic version of it. If it is something you guys want to do, and there are issues, problems, whatnot, I'm still, you know, in the process of beta testing this. You know, as you've seen, I've done one kid, but I'm looking to do another kid in order to make sure that I've got all the little kinks worked out formula-wise and whatnot. But you know, every now and then I'm coming across a typo that I made when I was screaming through this, since I was just looking at the book and typing away. So, you know, I don't claim any I don't claim any ownership of any of this, since, you know, obviously I didn't do it. I don't have the skills to do it. This just isn't my population. I wish I did, and in fact, I wish somebody had, you know, kind of come across this, and I could have sat down right from the beginning. But if this is something that works out, and you guys are looking at using, I think that's fantastic. I mean, I figure I owe you guys anyway. You know, Hema, you put up with me for 3 years. That is my wife coughing in the background, so somebody did finally draw the short straw. You know, Deborah, there was that whole finger incident, and Olga, you know, you were right there at the very beginning when I was doing orientation and mobility over in Region 11, doing it through SFA. So I will email you a copy of both this eval, Bubba, although its kid's name's not really Bubba, and the Texas two-step scoring, just a blank one. So take a look, and you know, let me know what you think, and I will try to put up a short video of the other kid that I have to do this on, who again is a little more capable. Bubba is and that's not even his nickname, by the way. Bubba is a extremely multiply impaired student, whereas the other kid we're going to be doing is a little more mobile, well, a lot more mobile. So that should make for an interesting comparison. So anyway, video 2 will be coming up.